The pain started during lunch. Maya Thompson sat at a table in the community center, surrounded by local teachers and parents. She had come to this small town just outside Washington, D.C. to speak about literacy programs. The event was going well until a sharp pain twisted through her stomach. Maya pressed her hand against her side and tried to focus on the conversation around her. She was 52 years old and had always been healthy. This pain felt different. It felt wrong. "Are you okay?" asked the woman sitting next to her. Her name was Linda, a school principal with kind eyes. Maya forced a smile. "I'm fine. Just a stomach ache, but the pain grew worse. It spread across her abdomen like fire." Maya's vision blurred slightly. She gripped the edge of the table. Linda noticed immediately. "You're not fine. We need to get you to a hospital." Maya wanted to argue, but another wave of pain cut through her words. She nodded weakly. 2 people helped Maya to a car. The drive to Riverside Community Hospital took only 10 minutes, but to Maya, it felt like hours. Each bump in the road sent fresh pain through her body. She focused on breathing slowly, the way she had learned during her years on the bench. Stay calm, stay focused. The emergency room was busy but not crowded. Linda helped Maya through the automatic doors. The cool air-conditioned air hit Maya's face. She felt dizzy. A young nurse at the front desk looked up. Her name tag read, Sarah Kim. She had black hair pulled back in a neat ponytail and concern in her eyes. "She's in a lot of pain," Linda explained. "It came on suddenly about 30 minutes ago." Sarah stood up quickly. "Let's get you checked in. Can you tell me where it hurts?" Maya pointed to her lower right side. "Here, it's sharp and it's getting worse." Sarah wrote notes on a clipboard. She asked Maya her name, age, and basic information. Maya answered each question clearly despite the pain. She gave her name but said nothing about her job. She never did. Maya had learned long ago that her title changed how people treated her, and she preferred to be treated like everyone else. "Take a seat," Sarah said gently. "We'll get you back as soon as possible." Maya sat down in a hard plastic chair. Linda sat beside her, holding her hand. 20 minutes passed. The pain grew sharper. Maya closed her eyes and tried to stay calm. "Maya Thompson?" A voice called from the doorway. Linda helped Maya stand. They followed a medical assistant down a bright hallway. The assistant, a young man with tired eyes, barely looked at them. He led Maya to a small examination room and took her vital signs. Blood pressure, temperature, pulse. He wrote everything down without speaking much. "The doctor will be in soon," he said, and left. Maya lay back on the examination table. The paper covering crinkled under her weight. She wore simple clothes, a blue blouse and dark pants. No jewelry except her wedding ring. She had dressed casually for the community event, wanting to seem approachable. The door opened 15 minutes later. A man in a white coat walked in. He was tall, maybe 60 years old, with gray hair and cold blue eyes. His name tag identified him as Dr. Richard Hayes. Dr. Hayes looked at Maya without smiling. His eyes moved over her face, her clothes, her hands. Something in his expression made Maya uncomfortable. "So what's the problem?" he asked. His tone was flat, almost bored. "I have severe pain in my lower right abdomen," Maya explained. "It started about an hour ago and it's getting worse." Dr. Hayes glanced at the chart. "Uh-huh. On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is the pain?" 8 or 9, Maya said. Dr. Hayes raised an eyebrow. He looked skeptical. 8 or 9, really? Maya felt a flash of irritation through her pain. "Yes, really. It's very severe. Everyone says their pain is an 8 or 9, Dr. Hayes said. He stepped closer but didn't touch her. "When was your last bowel movement?" Maya answered his questions. When did the pain start? Had she eaten anything unusual? Did she have a history of stomach problems? She answered everything clearly and completely. Dr. Hayes listened with a distracted air. He seemed more interested in the clock on the wall than in Maya's answers. "Any drug allergies?" he asked. "No," Maya said. "What about drug use? Do you use any recreational drugs?" Maya's eyes narrowed. "No, I don't." "You sure about that?" "Sometimes people aren't honest about these things." "I'm being completely honest," Maya said firmly. "I don't use drugs." Dr. Hayes wrote something on his chart. "Right, and do you have insurance?" The question seemed to come out of nowhere. Maya stared at him. "Yes, I have insurance. What kind?" "Does that matter right now?" Maya asked. "I'm in a lot of pain and I need help." Dr. Hayes gave her a look that Maya recognized. She had seen it before, many times in her life. It was a look that said he had already made up his mind about who she was and what she deserved. "Look," he said slowly, as if speaking to a child. "We get a lot of people in here who exaggerate their symptoms. People looking for pain medication, if you know what I mean. I need to make sure we're dealing with a real emergency here." Maya felt anger rise in her chest, mixing with the pain. "This is a real emergency. I'm not looking for drugs. I need a proper examination." "I'm sure you do," Dr. Hayes said. His tone dripped with sarcasm. "But I've been doing this for 30 years. I know the difference between real pain and people who are just looking for a fix." Linda, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, stood up. "Excuse me, but that's completely inappropriate. She needs help." Dr. Hayes barely glanced at Linda. "And you are?" "A friend. And I'm telling you, she's really sick." "I'll be the judge of that," Dr. Hayes said coldly. He turned back to Maya. "Let me examine you." He pressed on Maya's stomach, but his touch was rough and careless. When Maya flinched and cried out, he pulled back immediately. "See? You're fine. If you were really in that much pain, you wouldn't let me touch you at all." Maya couldn't believe what she was hearing. "That's not how pain works." "Please, I think this might be my appendix," Dr. Hayes laughed. Actually laughed. "You think it's your appendix? Are you a doctor now?" "No, but I know my body and something is seriously wrong." "Tell you what," Dr. Hayes said, writing on his chart. "I'll order some basic blood work. But honestly, I think you probably just have gas or constipation. People like you tend to panic over normal stomach issues." Maya's head snapped up. "People like me?" Dr. Hayes realized what he had said, but he didn't apologize. Instead, he doubled down. "People who aren't familiar with how their bodies work. People who don't have regular access to health care and panic when they feel any discomfort." "That's an incredibly ignorant assumption," Maya said, her voice tight with anger and pain. "It's based on experience," Dr. Hayes replied. "Look, I'm going to order the blood work, but I'm busy with real emergencies. You might be waiting a while." He turned to leave. "Wait," Maya said. "How long is a while?" Dr. Hayes shrugged. "Could be an hour. Could be more. We have to prioritize based on severity. But I told you this is severe." "In your opinion," Dr. Hayes said. "Not in mine." He walked out, closing the door behind him. Maya lay back on the table, tears of frustration and pain in her eyes. Linda came over and took her hand. "That was horrible," Linda whispered. "The way he spoke to you." Maya knew exactly what it was. She had faced racism her entire life, in courtrooms and classrooms, in stores and restaurants. But she had never expected it in a hospital, not like this, not when she was vulnerable and in pain. The pain in her side pulsed with each heartbeat. Maya closed her eyes and waited, hoping the blood work would show something, hoping someone would take her seriously before it was too late. 2 hours passed. Maya lay on the examination table, curled on her side, trying to find any position that eased the pain. It was impossible. The pain had moved beyond sharp and into something that consumed her entire awareness. Each breath hurt, moving hurt, staying still hurt. Linda had left to make phone calls. Maya was alone in the small room, listening to the sounds of the hospital. Doctors being paged, carts rolling down hallways, voices discussing cases that weren't hers. The door finally opened. Sarah, the young nurse from the front desk, stepped inside. She looked worried. "I'm so sorry you've been waiting so long," Sarah said. She checked Maya's vital signs again. Her frown deepened when she saw Maya's blood pressure and heart rate. "Your pulse is elevated. How's the pain?" "Worse," Maya managed to say. "Much worse," Sarah bit her lip. She looked at the chart, then back at Maya. "Dr. Hayes ordered blood work 2 hours ago, but it looks like the order got delayed somehow. I'm going to make sure it gets done right now." "Thank you," Maya whispered. Sarah hesitated at the door. "I'm going to be honest with you. I saw how Dr. Hayes treated you earlier. It wasn't right. I should have said something then." Maya tried to smile, but it came out as a grimace. "It's okay." "No, it's not okay," Sarah said firmly. "Just hold on. I'm going to get you help." She left and Maya was alone again. The pain built and built until she couldn't think about anything else. She thought about her husband, James, back in Washington. He was probably in a meeting, completely unaware that anything was wrong. She thought about her children, grown now with lives of their own. She thought about the Supreme Court case she was supposed to review tomorrow morning. Mostly, though, she just thought about the pain. Linda returned with water and a worried expression. "I called your office." They're concerned.
Do you want me to call James?
Not yet, Maya said. Let's wait until we know what's wrong. More time passed. A technician finally came to draw blood. She was efficient and kind, apologizing for the delay. The vials of dark red blood disappeared down the hallway. Another hour went by. Linda paced the small room. Maya's pain had reached a level where she couldn't speak anymore. She focused on breathing, on staying conscious. When Dr. Hayes returned, his expression hadn't changed. He still looked annoyed and skeptical. Your blood work shows some elevated white blood cells, he said, glancing at a paper in his hand. But nothing alarming. Could be a mild infection. Could be nothing. Maya forced words through the pain. What about imaging?
A CT scan?
Dr. Hayes crossed his arms. That seems excessive for what's probably a stomach bug. Those scans are expensive, and frankly, I don't think you need one. She's been in pain for 4 hours, Linda said, her voice rising. She can barely speak. Something is seriously wrong. Are you a medical professional? Dr. Hayes asked coldly. No, but I have eyes. Anyone can see she's suffering. Dr. Hayes turned back to Maya. Look, I'm going to be straight with you. We have limited resources here. I can't order expensive tests for every patient who comes in claiming they're dying. People like you come through this ER every day with the same complaints. You want tests, you want medication, you want attention? Maya's anger cut through her pain. She sat up slowly, her hand pressed to her side. People like me? Say what you mean, doctor. Dr. Hayes's face flushed. I mean people who use the emergency room like it's a primary care clinic. People who probably should be at the county health center instead of taking up space here. You're making assumptions based on how I look, Maya said. Her voice was steady despite the pain. You decided who I was the moment you walked into this room. That's ridiculous, Dr. Hayes said, but his tone betrayed him. Is it? Maya asked. You've questioned whether I'm telling the truth about my pain. You've asked about drug use. You've questioned my insurance. You've suggested I'm wasting resources, all before doing any real examination or diagnostic work. Sarah appeared in the doorway. She must have heard raised voices. Dr. Hayes, her vitals are concerning. I really think she needs more comprehensive care. Dr. Hayes spun around. Nurse Kim, I don't recall asking for your opinion. But doctor, that's enough. I'm the physician here. I make the medical decisions, Sarah's face hardened, then make a medical decision that actually helps your patient. The tension in the room could have been cut with a knife. Dr. Hayes stared at Sarah, clearly angry that she had challenged him. Maya watched through waves of pain, impressed by the young nurse's courage. Fine, Dr. Hayes said through clenched teeth. I'll order an ultrasound, but when it comes back normal, I want both of you to remember that I know what I'm doing. He scribbled on his chart and left, letting the door slam behind him. Sarah came over to Maya immediately. Are you okay? Well, obviously you're not okay, but I'm sorry. This is wrong. Everything about how he's treating you is wrong. Thank you for standing up for me, Maya said softly. Someone should have done it sooner, Sarah replied. She looked angry and ashamed at the same time. I've seen him treat other patients this way. Patients who look like you. I've always been too scared to say anything because I'm new here and he's been here forever. But I can't just watch this anymore. Linda had moved to Maya's other side. How long until the ultrasound? I'll push it through as fast as I can, Sarah promised. But fast wasn't fast enough. Another hour went by. The ultrasound technician was dealing with another emergency. Maya's pain had become unbearable. She couldn't lie still anymore. She couldn't find any position that helped. Linda went to find help and came back with Sarah. Both women looked frightened by Maya's condition. We need to move her to the hallway, Sarah said. We need this room for another patient. But I'll stay close, I promise. They helped Maya onto a gurney. The movement sent lightning bolts of pain through her body. She cried out despite herself. They wheeled her into the hallway, parking the gurney against a wall near the nurse's station. Maya lay there, exposed to the busy emergency room. People walked past. Some stared, some ignored her. She felt invisible and yet horribly visible at the same time. Dr. Hayes walked past twice. Both times he glanced at Maya but didn't stop. The second time he was talking loudly on his phone about a golf game. Maya heard him laugh about something. She was dying, or felt like she was dying, and he was talking about golf. Other patients arrived. Maya watched as Dr. Hayes treated them. He was kind to some, professional with others. He smiled and joked with a young white woman who had twisted her ankle. He spent 30 minutes with an elderly white man who had chest pains, even though the man's tests came back normal. Maya understood completely. She wasn't invisible because she was unimportant. She was invisible because in Dr. Hayes's eyes she didn't matter. Her pain didn't matter. Her life didn't matter. Sarah kept checking on Maya every few minutes. Her concern grew more visible each time. Finally, she went to find Dr. Hayes. Maya could hear them arguing near the nurse's station. Sarah's voice was insistent. Dr. Hayes's voice was dismissive. "She needs immediate attention," Sarah said. "She's waiting for an ultrasound like everyone else," Dr. Hayes replied. "It's been hours. Her condition is deteriorating." "Your judgment of her condition is noted. But I'm the doctor here, not you. If you can't accept that, maybe you should find another place to work." Sarah's voice dropped, but Maya heard the anger in it. "I've worked in emergency rooms for 5 years. I know when someone is in real trouble. That woman is in real trouble." "That woman," Dr. Hayes said, his voice carrying clearly down the hallway, "is in the same trouble as a dozen other patients who come in here every week. They all think they're dying. They all demand immediate attention, and they all turn out to be fine. She's probably constipated or has menstrual cramps." Several people in the waiting area had stopped to listen. Some had taken out their phones. Maya saw camera phones pointing toward Dr. Hayes, recording his words. "This is discrimination," Sarah said clearly. "You're not treating her the same way you treat other patients, and we both know why." Dr. Hayes's face turned red. "How dare you accuse me of that? I've served this community for 30 years. I treat everyone equally. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks very different. If you don't like how I practice medicine, Nurse Kim, there's the door." The confrontation had drawn attention from everyone nearby. Other nurses had stopped working to watch. Security guards had moved closer, sensing potential trouble. Maya tried to sit up. The movement was a mistake. The pain exploded through her body like a bomb going off. Her vision went dark around the edges. She felt herself falling, heard Linda screaming her name, heard Sarah shouting for help. Then everything went black. When Maya opened her eyes, she was moving. The ceiling tiles flashed past overhead. Voices shouted medical terms she barely understood. She felt hands on her, checking pulses, inserting IVs. "BP dropping," someone said. "Possible ruptured appendix," another voice said. "Get her to surgery now." The last thing Maya saw before losing consciousness again was Sarah's face above her, tears streaming down her cheeks, saying over and over, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Maya woke up slowly as if swimming up through deep water. The first thing she noticed was that the pain was gone. Not completely gone, but different now. Manageable. Distant. The second thing she noticed was the tube in her throat. She panicked for a moment, her hands moving toward her face. Gentle hands stopped her. "Mrs. Thompson, don't pull at that. You just came out of surgery. We're going to remove the breathing tube now that you're awake." A doctor she didn't recognize stood over her. He was young, maybe 40, with kind brown eyes and steady hands. His name tag read, Dr. Marcus Chen, surgeon. The process of removing the tube was uncomfortable, but it was over quickly. Maya coughed and tried to speak. "Don't try to talk yet," Dr. Chen said gently. "Your throat will be sore. Just rest." He held up a cup of ice chips. Maya took one gratefully. The cold felt wonderful against her raw throat. "You had acute appendicitis," Dr. Chen explained. "Your appendix was on the verge of rupturing when we got you into surgery. Another hour, maybe less, and it would have burst. That could have been fatal." Maya closed her eyes. She had been right. She had known something was seriously wrong, and Dr. Hayes had dismissed her for hours. Hours that could have killed her. "Where am I?" she managed to ask, her voice a rasp. "Recovery room. We'll move you to a private room soon. Your friend Linda has been calling every 15 minutes. Your husband is on his way from Washington." Maya nodded. She felt exhausted and angry at the same time. Dr. Chen pulled up a chair. He sat down, which surprised Maya. Doctors usually didn't sit. They delivered information and left. "Mrs. Thompson, I need to be honest with you. What happened today should never have happened. I've reviewed your chart and the timeline of your treatment. It's unacceptable. You should have been in surgery hours earlier." "Dr. Hayes?" Maya whispered. "Yes, Dr. Hayes was your attending physician." Dr. Chen's expression was carefully neutral, but Maya could see the anger behind it. I've already reported the incident to our hospital administrator, Margaret Chen. No relation to me, by the way. She's taking this very seriously. Good, Maya said. There's something else, Dr. Chen continued. Nurse Sarah Kim has filed a formal complaint about Dr. Hayes' treatment of you. She's provided a detailed account of everything she witnessed. Additionally, several people in the waiting area recorded video of Dr. Hayes' comments. Those videos are already spreading on social media. Maya tried to process this information. She was still foggy from anesthesia. Videos. Dr. Hayes made some unfortunate statements in the hallway. Very unfortunate. The videos are quite clear. Maya didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She had spent her entire career maintaining dignity and privacy. She had worked hard to keep her personal life separate from her professional life, and now she was at the center of a social media incident, unconscious in a hospital bed, unable to control the narrative. I need to see my phone, Maya said. Rest first, Dr. Chen urged. Your body has been through trauma, but Maya was insistent. A nurse brought her belongings, including her phone. It had dozens of missed calls. Messages from her law clerks. Messages from her fellow justices. Messages from the Chief Justice himself. Linda arrived before Maya could read any of them. She rushed to Maya's bedside, tears streaming down her face. Thank God, Linda said, gripping Maya's hand. I was so scared. When you collapsed, I thought. I didn't know if... I'm okay, Maya assured her. I'm going to be okay. That doctor, Linda said, anger replacing her tears. That horrible man. He almost killed you, Maya. He left you suffering for hours because he looked at me and decided who I was. Maya finished quietly. They sat in silence for a moment. Maya knew this feeling. The weight of being judged before speaking, the exhaustion of proving your worth over and over, the pain of being seen as less than human. There was a knock at the door. A woman in a business suit entered. She was in her 50s with gray hair cut short and worry lines around her eyes. Mrs. Thompson, I'm Margaret Chen, the hospital administrator. First, I want to apologize. What happened to you today is inexcusable. I'm so very sorry. Maya studied her. Margaret seemed genuinely distressed. Thank you. I've been reviewing your case for the past 2 hours, Margaret continued. I've spoken with staff members, reviewed security footage, and examined your medical records. I need to ask you some questions if you're feeling up to it. I can answer questions, Maya said. Margaret pulled out a tablet and stylus. Can you walk me through your experience from the moment Dr. Hayes first examined you? Maya did. She recounted every detail she could remember. The dismissive attitude, the assumptions about drug use, the questions about insurance, the comments about people like you, the refusal to order appropriate tests, the hours of suffering in the hallway. Linda added her own observations. She described Dr. Hayes' tone, his body language, his obvious disdain. Margaret wrote everything down. Her expression grew darker as the story unfolded. This matches what others have told me. Sarah Kim was particularly detailed in her account. She's a brave young woman. She is, Maya agreed. She tried to help me. She did more than try. She literally may have saved your life by insisting on getting you to surgery. Margaret paused. Mrs. Thompson, I need to tell you something. Sarah has been keeping notes for months about Dr. Hayes' treatment of minority patients. She witnessed him provide inferior care multiple times. She documented everything, but she didn't know how to report it without risking her job. Maya felt a chill run through her. This has happened before. Yes, and after your case today, other patients have started coming forward. We've received 5 new complaints in the past 3 hours, all from Black and Latino patients, all describing similar experiences with Dr. Hayes. 5 complaints, Maya repeated, in 3 hours. I believe there are many more who never reported their experiences, Margaret said quietly. People who didn't think anyone would believe them. People who thought this was just how healthcare worked. Maya thought about all the times she had told people about subtle racism in her life. How often those stories were dismissed or minimized. How often she was told she was being too sensitive or reading too much into things. She had trained herself to ignore so many slights, to rise above, to prove herself through excellence. But excellence didn't matter when someone had already decided you were worthless. What happens now? Maya asked. Dr. Hayes has been suspended pending a full investigation, Margaret said. The medical board will be involved. There will be legal consequences. And I want you to know that I take full responsibility for the culture that allowed this to happen. I should have created better reporting mechanisms. I should have investigated earlier complaints more thoroughly. Were there earlier complaints? Linda asked sharply. Margaret nodded. 3 formal complaints over the past 5 years. All were investigated internally. Dr. Hayes received warnings, but no serious discipline. I can see now that we failed those patients. We failed Mrs. Thompson. We failed everyone who came to this hospital expecting equal treatment. Maya appreciated Margaret's honesty, but it didn't change what had happened. I almost died because of his prejudice. Yes, Margaret said simply. Yes, you did, and I cannot undo that. But I can promise you that we will do everything in our power to make sure it never happens again. There was another knock at the door. A young woman peeked in. Mrs. Chen? I'm sorry to interrupt, but there are reporters outside. They're asking about the incident. Margaret's face paled. Already? The videos have gone viral, the assistant said. They're everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. Everyone is talking about it. Maya closed her eyes. She knew what was coming. The media circus. The national attention. Her private pain becoming public spectacle. Mrs. Thompson, Margaret said carefully, I need to ask you something. The reporters don't know who you are yet. They just know that a patient was mistreated, but when your identity becomes public, and it will become public, this story will explode. I need to prepare the hospital for that. I need to know who you are. Maya looked at Linda. Linda gave her a small nod. I'm a Supreme Court justice, Maya said quietly. The room fell silent. Margaret stared at her, the tablet falling from her hands and clattering on the floor. The assistant in the doorway gasped. You're Justice Maya Thompson, Margaret whispered. Oh my God. Yes, Margaret sat down heavily in the chair. Her face had gone white. A Supreme Court justice was left suffering in our hallway for hours. A Supreme Court justice nearly died because our doctor refused to treat her properly. A black woman nearly died, Maya corrected gently. That's the real story here. My title doesn't change what happened. It just means people will pay attention. Margaret nodded slowly. She seemed to be processing the full implications. The media is going to destroy us. You deserve it, Linda said bluntly. You let a racist doctor work here for decades. You ignored complaints. You created an environment where nurses were too afraid to speak up. Mrs. Thompson's title shouldn't matter, but it does matter that you let this happen to anyone. Margaret didn't argue. You're right. You're absolutely right. She looked at Maya. What do you want us to do? Maya thought about that question. What did she want? Justice, certainly. Accountability. Change. But more than that, she wanted to make sure this never happened to anyone else. The next morning, Maya woke to find her husband James sitting beside her bed. He was a tall man with silver hair and warm eyes that were currently red from crying. He held her hand gently as if she might break. Hey, Maya whispered. James leaned forward and kissed her forehead. Don't you ever scare me like that again? I'll try not to, Maya said with a weak smile. I drove here at 2 a.m, James said. When Linda called and told me what happened, I thought I was going to lose you. And then when I heard how that doctor treated you, his voice broke. He looked away, composing himself. Maya squeezed his hand. They had been married for 30 years. James knew every story of racism she had faced. He had been her rock through all of it. But she could see this had shaken him deeply. I'm okay, she said. I'm going to be okay. You almost weren't. James's voice was hard now. That man left you to suffer because of the color of your skin. He could have killed you. Before Maya could respond, there was a sharp knock at the door. Margaret Chen entered, looking like she hadn't slept all night. Behind her was a younger man in a suit carrying a briefcase. Justice Thompson, I'm sorry to disturb you so early, Margaret said, but we need to talk. The story broke nationally about 2 hours ago. Every major news outlet has it. And Dr. Hayes has been trying to reach the media with his own statement. Maya sat up carefully, wincing at the pain. What's he saying? The young man stepped forward. I'm David Park, the hospital's legal counsel. Dr. Hayes is claiming he provided appropriate care. He's saying you were difficult and demanding. He's suggesting that your complaints are exaggerated. Of course he is, James said bitterly. The videos contradict his claims, David continued. His own words are on camera, but he's still trying to control the narrative. We need to decide how to respond. Margaret handed Maya a tablet. The hospital board met at 5 this morning. We've made several decisions, but we wanted your input before making any public statements. Maya looked at the tablet. It showed a draft press release. The hospital was suspending Dr. Hayes without pay. They were launching a comprehensive review of all his patient cases from the past 10 years. They were implementing immediate mandatory bias training for all staff. They were creating an anonymous reporting system for discrimination complaints. This is a start, Maya said slowly. But it's not enough, Margaret nodded. What else do you need? I need you to contact every patient Dr. Hayes treated poorly. Personally contact them. Apologize. Offer free medical care for any conditions he misdiagnosed or ignored. And compensate them appropriately. That could be hundreds of patients, David said nervously. Then it's hundreds of patients who deserve justice, Maya replied firmly. You created an environment where this man could harm people for years. You have a responsibility to make it right. Margaret looked at David, then back to Maya. You're right. We'll do it. I also want Sarah Kim protected and promoted, Maya added. She showed incredible courage. She should be rewarded for that, not punished. Already done, Margaret said with a small smile. We promoted her to senior emergency nurse and gave her a significant raise. She's also been asked to lead our new patient advocacy program. Maya felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. At least something good was coming from this nightmare. There's one more thing, David said carefully. Dr. Hayes is requesting to speak with you directly. The room fell silent. James's hand tightened on Maya's. Absolutely not, he said. I agree with your husband, Margaret said quickly. You have no obligation to speak with him. None at all, but Maya was thinking. What does he want to say? He claims he wants to apologize, David said, his tone making clear he didn't believe it. He wants to save himself, James said flatly. He wants to make himself look better before the lawsuits start. Maya knew James was probably right, but part of her wanted to hear what Dr. Hayes would say. She wanted to look him in the eye and make him face what he had done. I'll speak with him, Maya said, but not alone. I want witnesses. I want James here. I want it recorded. Maya, you don't have to do this, James said gently. I know, but I want to. I need to hear what he has to say. Margaret and David exchanged glances. We can arrange it, Margaret said. If you're certain. I'm certain. The meeting was scheduled for that afternoon. Maya spent the morning resting and talking with Linda, who had stayed at a nearby hotel. The news coverage was relentless. Every major network was running the story. The videos of Dr. Hayes in the hallway had been viewed millions of times. People were outraged. Medical professionals were speaking out about bias in healthcare. Politicians were calling for investigations. Maya's identity had been revealed within hours. Once the media learned a Supreme Court justice had been mistreated, the story exploded even further. Maya's phone was flooded with messages of support. Her fellow justices sent flowers and concerned calls. Civil rights organizations reached out, offering legal support if she wanted to sue. But Maya wasn't thinking about lawsuits. She was thinking about all the people who didn't have her resources, her education, her position, all the people who experienced this kind of treatment and had no voice, no platform, no justice. At 2 o'clock, Margaret returned with David and several other hospital officials. Behind them, looking smaller and older than Maya remembered, was Dr. Richard Hayes. He had none of the arrogance from yesterday. His shoulders were hunched. His face was gray. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years overnight. But Maya felt no sympathy for him. James stood beside Maya's bed, his presence solid and protective. 2 cameras were set up to record the meeting. David made sure everyone was aware they were being filmed. Justice Thompson, Margaret began formally. Dr. Hayes has requested this meeting. You can end it at any time. Do you understand? I understand, Maya said. Her voice was steady and clear. Dr. Hayes stepped forward. He couldn't seem to meet Maya's eyes. Justice Thompson, I wanted to apologize for— Look at me, Maya interrupted. Dr. Hayes's eyes jerked up. Maya held his gaze. If you're going to apologize, look at me while you do it, Maya said coldly. Dr. Hayes swallowed hard. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for how I treated you. I should have listened to your symptoms. I should have ordered proper tests immediately. I should have taken your pain seriously. Why didn't you? Maya asked. The question hung in the air. Dr. Hayes opened his mouth, closed it, struggled to find words. Tell me the truth, Maya pressed. Why did you dismiss my pain? Why did you assume I was lying? Why did you leave me suffering in that hallway? I made assumptions, Dr. Hayes said weakly. I was wrong. What assumptions? Dr. Hayes looked around the room as if searching for help. No one moved. I assumed you were exaggerating. I assumed you were looking for pain medication. You assumed all of this because I'm black, Maya said flatly. Say it. Say it, Maya repeated, her voice like steel. You looked at me and you saw a black woman, and you decided I was less deserving of care. You decided my pain didn't matter. Say it out loud. Dr. Hayes's face crumpled. Yes, I made assumptions based on your race. I was wrong. I was horribly wrong. I'm so sorry. How many others? Maya asked. How many other black patients? Latino patients? How many people have you treated this way? I don't know, Dr. Hayes whispered. You don't know, Maya repeated. You don't know how many lives you've damaged or destroyed because you couldn't see past your own prejudice. I never meant to hurt anyone, Dr. Hayes said. Tears were running down his face now. I've been a doctor for 30 years. I took an oath. I tried to help people. You tried to help people who looked like you, James said sharply. Everyone else was disposable. Dr. Hayes turned to James. I'm not a racist. I grew up with black friends. I donated to civil rights causes. I voted for President Obama. I'm not one of those people. Maya felt a deep exhaustion that had nothing to do with her surgery. She had heard these defenses her entire life. Good people don't do racist things. I have black friends. I voted for Obama, as if those things created immunity, as if good intentions erased harmful actions. Dr. Hayes, Maya said quietly, you don't need to wear a hood to be racist. You don't need to use slurs or burn crosses. Racism is in the assumptions you make, the care you withhold, the pain you ignore. You almost killed me because you couldn't see me as fully human. That's racism. Dr. Hayes stood there, broken and crying, and Maya felt nothing for him. No pity, no forgiveness, just a cold anger that this man had been allowed to harm people for decades. I'll pay for what I've done, Dr. Hayes said. I'll lose my license, my reputation, everything I've built. Yes, you will, Maya agreed, and you should. But you know what the real tragedy is? You'll suffer consequences because you did this to a Supreme Court justice. If I had been anyone else, if I had been a poor black woman with no power and no voice, you would have gotten away with it. Just like you got away with it hundreds of times before. The truth of that statement settled over the room. Dr. Hayes had no response. I want you to understand something, Maya continued. I'm not going to sue you. I'm not going to destroy you personally, but I'm going to make sure your case becomes a catalyst for change. Every medical school in this country is going to study what you did. Every hospital is going to use you as an example of what not to do. Your legacy will be that you showed the world how bias kills. Dr. Hayes nodded slowly. He looked utterly defeated. I deserve that. Yes, Maya said simply. You do. Margaret stepped forward. Dr. Hayes, I think that's enough. You need to leave now. Dr. Hayes looked at Maya one last time. I truly am sorry, Justice Thompson. Maya didn't respond. She watched him shuffle out of the room, his career and reputation in ruins. She knew some people would feel sorry for him. They would say he made a mistake, that he was a good doctor who had a bad moment, that he didn't deserve to lose everything. But Maya thought about the woman who might have died in that hallway, the woman who would have been blamed for her own death, the family who would have been told she just didn't seek help in time. She thought about all the other patients who weren't Supreme Court justices, who didn't have the power to demand justice, who suffered and died in silence, and she felt no sympathy at all. 6 weeks later, Maya stood in front of the full-length mirror in her Supreme Court chambers. The surgical scar was healing well, though it still pulled when she moved too quickly. Her clerk, a young woman named Jennifer Park, had helped her get dressed in her judicial robes. Today was her first day back. Are you sure you're ready? Jennifer asked for the third time that morning. Maya adjusted her collar and smiled. I'm ready. I've been sitting at home for too long. It's time to get back to work. The truth was more complicated than that. The past 6 weeks had been overwhelming. The media attention had been constant. Every news outlet wanted an interview. Every talk show wanted her to appear. Civil rights organizations wanted her to speak at their events. Medical journals wanted her to write about her experience. Maya had declined most of the requests. She had given one carefully crafted interview to a respected journalist, explaining what happened and calling for systemic change in healthcare. That was enough. She was a judge, not an activist. Her power came from her work on the bench, not from being a celebrity victim. But she had done one interview that meant something to her. She had spoken with Sarah Kim for a documentary about bias in medicine. Sarah was now leading the hospital's patient advocacy program, training staff on how to recognize and combat their own prejudices. The young nurse had become a powerful voice for change. "The Chief Justice wants to see you before the session starts," Jennifer said, checking her watch. "He asked you to come to his office at 9. Maya nodded. She had expected this. The Chief Justice had called her several times during her recovery, expressing concern and support. But she knew this conversation would be different. They needed to discuss how her experience might affect her work on the court. Chief Justice William Morrison was 68 years old, with sharp blue eyes and a reputation for fairness. He greeted Maya warmly, embracing her in a brief hug. "Maya, it's good to see you back. How are you feeling?" "Better every day," Maya said, taking a seat across from his large oak desk. "Good, good." Morrison sat down, his expression growing more serious. "I want to talk to you about the Jefferson medical case." Maya had known this was coming. The Jefferson medical case was a major lawsuit about racial discrimination in healthcare. A black man had died after being denied proper treatment at a hospital. His family was suing, claiming the hospital's policies and practices were discriminatory. The case was scheduled for oral arguments in 2 months. "I should recuse myself," Maya said quietly. Morrison studied her. "That's one option. But Maya, your experience gives you unique insight into this issue. The other justices and I have discussed it. We all agree that you're capable of being objective even given what you've been through." "Can I be objective?" Maya asked honestly. "Bill, I nearly died because of the exact kind of bias this case is about. How can I pretend that hasn't changed me?" "I'm not asking you to pretend," Morrison said gently. "I'm asking you to bring that understanding to your analysis of the law. Your experience doesn't make you biased. It makes you informed." Maya thought about that. She had always prided herself on her objectivity, on her ability to separate personal feelings from legal analysis. But Morrison had a point. Her experience had given her knowledge that no amount of legal briefs could provide. She understood viscerally what it meant to be denied care because of racism. "I'll think about it," Maya said. "That's all I ask." Morrison stood and walked her to the door. "It's good to have you back, Maya. We missed you." The morning session was routine. Contract disputes, procedural questions, nothing controversial. Maya settled back into the rhythm of her work, the familiar weight of her responsibilities. This was where she belonged. During lunch, Maya met with Dr. Chen in a small cafe near the courthouse. The surgeon had reached out several times during her recovery, checking on her progress. Today he had something else to discuss. "Justice Thompson, thank you for meeting with me," Dr. Chen said as they sat down with sandwiches neither of them would eat much of. "Please call me Maya. You saved my life. I think we're past formalities." Dr. Chen smiled briefly. "Maya, then. I wanted to update you on what's happening at Riverside. The changes Margaret promised are actually being implemented. It's remarkable, really." Maya leaned forward. "Tell me." "We've had mandatory bias training for every staff member. Not just a 1-hour seminar, but comprehensive education over several weeks. Nurses, doctors, administrators, everyone. We're learning to recognize our assumptions and challenge them." "How's it being received?" "Mixed," Dr. Chen admitted. "Some people are embracing it. Others resent being told they're biased. But it's mandatory, and Margaret has made it clear that anyone who refuses will be terminated." "Good," Maya said firmly. "We've also implemented a new patient advocacy system. Every patient now has access to an advocate who can escalate concerns immediately. Sarah Kim has been incredible in that role. She's already prevented several situations that could have become serious." Maya felt a surge of pride for the young nurse. She deserves all the credit she's getting. "There's more," Dr. Chen continued. "We've reached out to 247 former patients of Dr. Hayes. Patients who filed complaints or who we identified through record reviews as potentially receiving inadequate care. We're offering them free medical evaluations and treatment for any conditions that may have been missed or misdiagnosed." 47 patients, Maya repeated, feeling sick. That many. That's just the ones we could identify. There are probably more who never complained. They sat in silence for a moment, contemplating the scope of the harm. What about Dr. Hayes? Maya asked. What's happened to him? Dr. Chen's expression hardened. The medical board revoked his license last week. Permanently. He can never practice medicine again. There are also several civil lawsuits pending. His career is over. Maya nodded. She felt no satisfaction in his destruction, but no regret either. And the hospital? Margaret has been true to her word. She's transforming the culture. It's not perfect, and it won't happen overnight. But real change is happening. Your case shocked everyone into action. It shouldn't have taken a Supreme Court justice nearly dying, Maya said quietly. It should have been enough that anyone was mistreated. You're right, Dr. Chen agreed. But sometimes it takes a dramatic event to force institutions to face their failures. Your case is doing that, not just at Riverside but at hospitals across the country. Every medical organization is re-examining their policies. Medical schools are changing their curricula to include more training on bias and cultural competency. Maya had seen some of this coverage. Her case had sparked a national conversation about racism in healthcare. Studies were being cited showing that Black patients received less pain medication, had their symptoms taken less seriously, and had worse health outcomes even when controlling for income and insurance status. The data had always been there. People just hadn't been paying attention. I got an interesting call last week, Maya said, from the Department of Health and Human Services. They want to create new federal guidelines for addressing bias in medical settings. They asked if I would consult on the project. Dr. Chen's eyes widened. Will you? I'm considering it, but I need to be careful. I'm a judge. I can't become an advocate even for important causes. My power comes from my impartiality. Is it impartial to stand by and watch people die? Dr. Chen asked gently. The question hit hard. Maya had been wrestling with it for weeks. Where was the line between judicial impartiality and moral responsibility? Could she stay silent about an injustice she had experienced personally? I don't know, Maya admitted. I'm still figuring that out. That evening, Maya returned home to find James cooking dinner. The smell of garlic and herbs filled their townhouse. Their daughter Michelle was there too, having driven down from New York to check on her mother. Mom. Michelle jumped up and hugged Maya carefully. How was your first day back? Long but good, Maya said, sinking into a chair at the kitchen table. It felt good to be back to normal. Is anything normal after what happened? Michelle asked. She was a civil rights lawyer, passionate and direct like her mother. I'm trying to make it normal, Maya said. James set a glass of wine in front of her. You don't have to pretend with us. This changed you. Maya took a sip of wine. Yes, it did. I keep thinking about all the times in my life when I've experienced racism and told myself to let it go, to rise above it, to be the bigger person. I've spent my whole career being careful, being measured, being the kind of Black woman white people find acceptable. Mom, you've never been that, Michelle protested. Haven't I? Maya asked. I've moderated my anger. I've softened my words. I've worked twice as hard to get half the credit. And I told myself that was just the price of success, that if I was excellent enough, smart enough, dignified enough, then race wouldn't matter. But it does matter, James said quietly. It does matter, Maya agreed. I was excellent. I was smart. I was dignified. And Dr. Hayes still saw me as nothing. He still left me to suffer, and he would have let me die. All my accomplishments, all my degrees, all my years of service, none of it mattered because he looked at me and saw someone who didn't deserve his care. Michelle reached across the table and took her mother's hand. What are you going to do? Maya thought about the Jefferson medical case, about the federal guidelines she had been asked to consult on, about all the people who were experiencing right now what she had experienced. I'm going to do my job, Maya said finally. I'm going to be a Supreme Court justice, but I'm not going to pretend anymore that I can separate my experiences from my understanding of the law. My life as a Black woman in America is not a bias to overcome. It's knowledge. It's insight, and I'm going to use it. James smiled and raised his glass. To Maya Thompson, justice who has always fought for the truth even when the truth is painful. They clinked glasses. Maya felt something shift inside her. For years she had worried about being seen as an activist judge. about having her decisions questioned because of her race, about proving over and over that she belonged on the Supreme Court. But Dr. Hayes had taught her something. No matter how careful she was, no matter how excellent, some people would never see her as anything but a black woman, so she might as well embrace that identity fully. She might as well use her voice and her power to speak truth about racism, even when that truth was uncomfortable. She thought about the Jefferson medical case, about the family who had lost a father and husband to the same kind of racism she had survived, about all the families who would face similar losses in the future. Maya Thompson would not recuse herself. She would hear the case. She would bring her full self to the analysis, including her experience as a black woman who had nearly died because of medical racism, and she would use her position on the highest court in the land to help create change. 6 months had passed since that terrible day at Riverside Community Hospital. Maya stood at the front of a packed auditorium at Georgetown University Medical School. She had been invited to give the keynote address at their annual conference on healthcare equity. Behind her, a large screen displayed the title of her speech, Justice in Medicine, When Bias Becomes Life or Death. Maya looked out at the sea of faces. Medical students, doctors, nurses, administrators. Some looked eager to hear her story. Others looked uncomfortable, defensive even. She understood both reactions. "Thank you for inviting me today," Maya began. "I'm going to tell you about the day I almost died. Not because I want your sympathy, but because I want you to understand how easy it is for prejudice to kill." She told them the story. Every detail. The dismissive examination, the assumptions, the hours of suffering, the near-fatal delay. The audience sat in silence, some taking notes, others staring with wide eyes. "Dr. Richard Hayes is no longer practicing medicine," Maya continued. "His license was revoked. His reputation is destroyed. Some of you might think that's enough, that justice has been served. But here's what keeps me up at night. How many patients did he harm before me? How many people are dead because he couldn't see past his own bias?" She clicked to the next slide. It showed statistics about racial disparities in healthcare, higher maternal mortality rates for black women, longer wait times for pain medication, lower rates of referral to specialists. The numbers told a devastating story. Dr. Hayes was not an anomaly, Maya said. Studies show that bias affects healthcare at every level. It's in how pain is assessed, how symptoms are believed, how treatment is allocated. And it kills people. Real people with families and dreams and futures. A hand went up in the audience. Maya nodded to a young white man in a white coat. "Justice Thompson, with respect, don't you think you're painting with too broad a brush? Most doctors aren't racist. We all took an oath to do no harm." Maya had expected this question. She had heard variations of it dozens of times. "You're right that most doctors aren't consciously racist," Maya said calmly. "Dr. Hayes probably didn't think of himself as racist either. He had black friends. He donated to the right causes. But racism isn't just about conscious hatred. It's about unconscious assumptions. It's about who you believe and who you doubt, who you see as fully human and who you see as exaggerating or drug-seeking." She clicked to another slide showing brain scans and research about implicit bias. Science tells us that we all have biases. They're built into our brains through years of exposure to cultural messages. The question isn't whether you have bias. The question is what you do about it. Do you examine it, challenge it, or do you insist you're one of the good ones and let patients suffer? The young man sat down, his face red. Maya continued speaking for another 40 minutes. She talked about the changes at Riverside Hospital, about Sarah Kim's patient advocacy program, about the new federal guidelines that were being developed, about the work still to be done. When she finished, the applause was long and loud, but Maya noticed that not everyone was clapping. Some sat with arms crossed, faces closed. She knew she hadn't reached everyone, but she had planted seeds of awareness. That was enough. After the speech, Maya met with a smaller group of students and faculty for lunch. A young black woman in her third year of medical school approached Maya hesitantly. "Justice Thompson, I just wanted to thank you. I've experienced bias from attending physicians during my rotations. They question my knowledge more than white students. They assume I'm a nurse or an aide, not a medical student. I started to think maybe I was being too sensitive." Maya took the young woman's hand. "You're not being too sensitive. Trust your experiences. Document them. Speak up when you can. And know that you belong here, even when people make you feel like you don't." The student's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. That means everything. These conversations continued throughout the afternoon. Black and Latino healthcare workers sharing their stories. Asian doctors talking about the model minority myth and how it affected their treatment. White allies asking how to be better advocates. By the time Maya left Georgetown, she was exhausted but energized. This was the work that mattered. Not just punishing one doctor, but changing an entire system. The following week, the Supreme Court heard oral arguments in Jefferson Medical versus United States. The courtroom was packed. Media lined up outside for one of the limited public seats. Everyone wanted to see how Justice Thompson would handle a case so close to her own experience. Maya sat at the bench in her judicial robes, flanked by her fellow justices. She listened carefully as lawyers presented their arguments. The hospital's attorney claimed that the death of Marcus Jefferson was a tragic mistake, not discrimination. The family's attorney argued that the hospital's policies and practices created an environment where Black patients systematically received inferior care. When it was Maya's turn to ask questions, her voice was clear and firm. Counsel for the hospital, you've argued that there's no evidence of intentional discrimination, but let me ask you this. If a hospital's policies consistently result in worse outcomes for Black patients, does intent matter? Or is the outcome itself proof of discrimination? The attorney struggled to answer. Maya pressed harder, asking pointed questions about hospital data, about training protocols, about complaint procedures. Her fellow justices watched with interest. Some nodded at her questions. Others looked thoughtful. When the arguments concluded, the justices retired to their conference room to discuss the case. The discussion was heated. Some justices felt the family hadn't proven intentional discrimination. Others argued that the statistical evidence was damning. Maya spoke last, as was tradition for the junior justice in conference. I want to address the elephant in the room, she began. Everyone knows what happened to me at Riverside Hospital. Some of you have privately asked if I can be objective about this case. Let me be clear. My experience doesn't make me biased. It makes me informed. She looked around the table at her colleagues. I know what it feels like to have your pain dismissed. I know what it's like to be seen as less than human. And I know that this isn't about isolated bad actors. It's about systems that allow bias to flourish. Marcus Jefferson died because a hospital's culture treated Black patients as less deserving of care. That's not a mistake. That's discrimination. The room was silent. Chief Justice Morrison finally spoke. Maya makes an important point. Intent is difficult to prove, but outcomes can demonstrate discriminatory impact. If a hospital's policies consistently harm one group of patients, the law should provide a remedy. The discussion continued for 2 more hours. When it ended, Maya had votes for her position. It would be close, but she believed they would win. Over the next 2 months, Maya worked on her opinion for the Jefferson medical case. She wrote and rewrote, crafting language that was legally sound but also accessible to ordinary people. She wanted this opinion to be understood not just by lawyers, but by every patient who had ever felt dismissed or ignored. The opinion was published on a Tuesday morning in mid-Sundays, April. Maya had written the majority opinion in a 5-4 decision. The court held that hospitals could be liable for discrimination, even without proof of intentional bias, if their policies and practices resulted in systematically worse care for minority patients. But it was Maya's final paragraph that made headlines around the world. Healthcare is a fundamental human right. When a patient seeks medical care, they come in vulnerability and trust. They trust that they will be seen as fully human. They trust that their pain will be believed. They trust that their life has value. When healthcare providers and institutions fail to honor that trust, when they allow bias to determine who receives care and who is left to suffer, they violate not just medical ethics but the basic principles of human dignity and equal protection under law. No one should die because of the color of their skin. No one should suffer because of prejudice. This court cannot tolerate such discrimination, and the law must provide a remedy when it occurs. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Civil rights organizations called it a landmark decision. Medical associations promised to review their policies. Hospitals across the country began implementing changes. Dr. Hayes's name came up in every discussion of the case. He had become a cautionary tale, a symbol of everything that could go wrong when bias went unchecked. But for Maya, The most meaningful response came from a different source. She received a letter from Marcus Jefferson's widow, Teresa. Justice Thompson. The letter read, "I watched you at the oral arguments. I saw you ask the questions that needed to be asked. And when I read your opinion, I cried. Not just because we won, but because someone finally said what needed to be said. My husband's death mattered. His life had value. You saw him. You saw all of us. Thank you for giving us justice." Maya kept that letter on her desk. It reminded her why her work mattered. 3 months later, Maya returned to Riverside Community Hospital. She had been invited by Margaret Chen to speak at a ceremony, marking the hospital's transformation. Maya had initially declined, not wanting to revisit the site of her trauma. But Margaret had been persistent. "We want to honor the changes you inspired," Margaret had said, "and we want you to see that those changes are real." So Maya came. She walked through the emergency room where she had suffered. It looked different now, brighter, more welcoming. Signs in multiple languages explained patient rights. Posters advertised the patient advocacy program. Sarah Kim was there, now the director of patient services. She greeted Maya with a warm hug. "Welcome back," Sarah said. "I know this must be difficult." "It is," Maya admitted. "But I'm glad I came." The ceremony was held in the hospital auditorium. Staff members filled the seats. Margaret spoke first, detailing all the changes that had been implemented. Mandatory bias training, anonymous reporting systems, regular audits of patient outcomes by race and ethnicity, a patient bill of rights posted in every room. "We reached out to 247 former patients of Dr. Hayes," Margaret said. "We apologized. We offered free medical care, and we compensated them for the harm they suffered. But beyond those individual cases, we've fundamentally changed how this hospital operates. We can never undo the pain we caused, but we can commit to doing better every single day going forward." Then it was Maya's turn to speak. She walked to the podium and looked out at the faces in front of her. Doctors, nurses, technicians, custodial staff, all of them part of the hospital's community. "6 months ago, I came to this hospital in pain and left it transformed," Maya began. "Not just because of surgery, but because I learned something important about power and vulnerability. When I walked through those doors, I was just another patient. My title didn't protect me. My education didn't protect me. My accomplishments didn't protect me. All that mattered was that someone looked at me and decided I wasn't worth their time or care." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But here's what I want you to understand. The changes you've made here matter. The training you've completed matters. The new policies matter, not because they'll prevent another Supreme Court justice from being mistreated, but because they'll protect everyone. The single mother working 2 jobs, the elderly man who doesn't speak English well, the teenager from the wrong side of town. They all deserve the same care, the same respect, the same dignity." Maya looked directly at the medical staff in the front rows. "Every day you have the power to see people or to overlook them, to believe them or to dismiss them, to offer healing or to inflict harm. That power is sacred. Use it wisely. Use it justly. And never forget that the person in front of you is someone's mother, someone's child, someone's love. They are fully human and fully deserving of your best care, regardless of what they look like or where they come from." The applause was thunderous. People stood. Some were crying. After the ceremony, Maya took a final walk through the hospital. She stopped at the spot in the hallway where she had collapsed. A young black man in scrubs was pushing a patient in a wheelchair, talking and laughing with them, treating them with obvious respect and care. Maya smiled. This was what change looked like. Not perfect, but better. Not complete, but progressing. Not the end, but a beginning. Outside, James was waiting for her in the car. Maya slid into the passenger seat and exhaled deeply. "How was it?" James asked. "Hard," Maya admitted, "but good. I think real change is happening there. Because of you," James said. "No," Maya corrected. "Because of all of us." Sarah spoke up. Margaret took action. The staff embraced change. "I was just the catalyst." James started the car. As they drove away from Riverside Hospital, Maya looked back one last time. The building looked ordinary from the outside. Just another community hospital serving ordinary people, but inside something extraordinary was happening. People were learning to see each other, to value each other, to care for each other. Maya thought about Dr. Hayes. He had lost everything, his career destroyed by his own prejudice. Part of her felt some small measure of sadness for him, but mostly, she felt relief that he could no longer harm anyone. She thought about the hundreds of patients who had suffered under his care. The lives damaged or lost, the pain inflicted. Those wounds would never fully heal. But at least now they were acknowledged. At least now there was justice. And she thought about all the hospitals across the country that were implementing similar changes, inspired by her case. The medical schools teaching about bias, the research being done on health disparities, the conversations happening in break rooms and conference rooms about how to do better. One terrible day at one hospital had sparked a movement. Maya had nearly died, but in surviving she had helped create change that would save countless lives. As they drove home through the busy streets of Washington, D.C., Maya felt at peace. She had faced her trauma. She had told her truth. And she had used her power to help others. That was all any justice, in any sense of the word, could hope to accomplish.